Under her proposal, the curfew would be moved from 11 p.m. to 8 p.m. During today's public safety meeting, committee members delayed a vote on the curfew proposal.
New details tonight about a large fire at the Target on Piedmont Road in Lindbergh. Atlanta fire crews were called to the scene around 5 o'clock tonight. Thick smoke was pouring from the store. Fire crews tell Fox 5 they believe the fire started in the linen and bedding area. They tell us the customer claimed to have seen a mattress on fire, but that has yet to be confirmed by investigators. With so many people inside, crews say they worked fast to evacuate the store.
No one injured. I think we had 3 employees that just got checked out by our EMS crews, and that was it. No one went to the hospital.
Fire officials have said the fire started in the center of the store. Tonight, no word yet on the cause. Facing charges. Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Russ Spencer.
I'm Courtney Bryant. Tonight, that 3-year-old is recovering in the hospital as his father and a woman face several charges, including aggravated assault, making false statements, and tampering with evidence.
Fox 5's Eric Perry talked with the child's mother, who says her son got a hold of a gun that was not stored properly.
The mom of the 3-year-old Amir, also known as Wugga by family and friends, tells me her baby is fighting to stay alive.
I never thought I would be in this situation. I don't wish this pain on nobody.
Surrounded by the support of family and friends, this mom doesn't want to show her face as her 3-year-old son Amir recovers inside Children's Healthcare of Atlanta.
He's right now in this hospital fighting for his life. He's on a breathing machine.
Saturday morning, Douglasville police rushed to the in-town suites where they found a toddler suffering from a gunshot wound. This mom says the child was with his father at the time and another woman. According to the GoFundMe, the child was able to get a hold of a gun inside that room and shot himself in the head. 23-year-old Devontae Porter and 29-year-old Jermisha Martin, both behind bars, facing charges of aggravated assault, child cruelty, reckless conduct, false statements, and tampering with evidence.
Thinking of memories of my baby, I look at videos of him being happy, and I try to remember him as that.
She was just doing what anybody would do, want to make sure that she allowed her baby to know who her father is. This baby comes from a loving family. A single mother, she works hard, she's gainfully employed.
Family and friends say this mom would do whatever for Amir, who they say loves to dance, play, and is a fighter.
I love my baby to death. I don't wish this pain on no mother, no father, aunties, uncles, nobody.
Just put the guns away. Lock them up if you have children in the home.
Yeah, your heart just goes out to the family. Police in Douglasville say they are still trying to figure out just what happened inside of that room. We place more information of how you can help the 3-year-old and his mom on our website. Outside Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, I'm Eric Perry, Fox 5 News.
Eric, thank you. Tragedy in Mac together for lunch. Right now, it's unclear what led to the shooting. Lampley is charged with murder. Havana police say a man was shot moments after he saw someone breaking into his car in Midtown. It happened around 11:45 last night on Peachtree Street. Now, police say the man was walking to his car, parked in a private lot between Dunkin' and Bulldog's nightclub, when he noticed someone sitting in his car, and the windows were broken. That's when police say the suspect shot the victim in the stomach. He took off in a yellow Dodge Charger.
Police said 3 people were taken into custody. 2 of them remain detained, while an 18-year-old named Preston Walls was charged with 2 counts of murder and 1 count of attempted murder. In the wake of the recent shootings, Connecticut Governor Ned Lamont announced a series of proposed gun laws. The legislation will include a ban on the currently legal practice of openly carrying firearms while still allowing concealed carrying. The governor's proposal also includes limiting handgun purchases to 1 per month, and it would spend an additional $2.5 million on community anti-violence programs. Lamont and other Democratic officials said the changes are needed to help curb rising gun violence. Republicans in the Democratic-controlled legislature criticized the plans, however, as focusing too much on law-abiding citizens and not enough on criminals who aren't obeying the law. Lawmakers for the Intelligence Committee, in defiance of House Speaker Kevin McCarthy's vow to block them. Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries asked that Congressman Adam Schiff and Eric Swalwell be reappointed to the prestigious panel, maintaining that there is no precedent or justification for rejecting them. The letter amounts to an early test for McCarthy, with a Republican rank and file looking for him to keep his promises. The Speaker had warned that Republicans could extract revenge against Democrats for stripping Representatives Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia and Paul Gosar of Arizona from their committee assignments in the last Congress. Democrats said they were justified because of the pair's incendiary comments.
On autopsy gurneys and in funeral homes. Fentanyl is now involved in about 70% of King County overdose deaths as of late 2022. Meanwhile, a record 310 homeless people died in the Seattle area last year. That breaks a previous record of 195 homeless deaths from 2018. And on the streets of New York City, crime has banks worried. Chase Bank is no longer offering 24-hour service at some of its ATMs in the city. In the announcement yesterday, the bank cited rising crime and vagrancy for its decision. Chase has several hundred branches in the city. A spokesperson said only a small number of machines will no longer offer the 24-hour service. Instead, those machines will shut down earlier in the evening. Mayor Eric Adams wasn't happy with the decision and said more needs to be done to make people feel safe in the city. Crime in New York was up by over 23% last year, though shootings and murders fell.
Audacity to say Black Lives Matter. Their bread and butter and their bottom line, their raison d'etre and everything that they're trying to do depends upon people being kept in these boxes.
That's from a month ago. AAA says the end of Georgia's gas tax suspension has played a major role in the jump in prices. Shot?
Rose, after a tough loss on Saturday night to the Hornets, the Hawks are looking to bounce back in a major way on the road tonight in Chi-Town, taking on the Bulls. And the Hawks wins this past few weeks. It's been a total group effort to them through. Well, at one point,
most people looking to pay it off within 5 years. And when it comes to physical or financial health, we now know what more people are thinking about. According to a new survey from Quest Diagnostics, more Americans know their credit card score better than their blood type or cholesterol level. That's business. I'm David Asman.
There's never enough time. Who's going to teach you?
Have all the justification in the world to remove Shifty Schaefer from the Intelligence Committee. Wasn't he the one that brought that fake Russiagate bullshit into Congress? Along with the rest of the Democrats? He doesn't deserve to be on the Intelligence Committee. Not when somebody's going to bring lies out and use it as evidence in an impeachment. It's all bogus. And he's responsible for it. Every bit of it. Along with the rest of those idiots. He doesn't deserve to be on the Intel Committee. My approval rating of Joe Biden is 0.000%, especially with the border situation and other things going on, all those classified documents he's got in his possession. And he should never have had them there to begin with. What's he going to do? Say he got them when he was president? Tell another lie to the American people? And his situation with the immigration problem and not enforcing the laws we have in place, creating a crisis in this country. No, I'd say go for the 14th, but then we'd be stuck with Harris.
His attorney. McGonigal is also being accused of concealing hundreds of thousands of dollars while working for the FBI. That's in a separate case out of Washington. It's alleged he took the money from a former employee of an Albanian intelligence agency. Prosecutors say he was required to disclose overseas travel and contacts with foreign nationals. An initial court appearance on those charges is set for Wednesday. Here's what McGonigal's lawyer had to say yesterday.
I haven't seen any evidence yet. Mr. McGonagall's had a long day. Glad he was released. We expected him to be released. Sent her to plea of not guilty. The government said they're going to turn over discovery in the next 2 weeks, which we look forward to reviewing. You know, Charlie, as you all know, Charlie's had a long, distinguished career with the FBI. He served the United States for decades. We'll review the evidence, we'll closely scrutinize it, and we have a lot of confidence in Mr. McGonagall.
The Justice Department says McGonagall tried to have sanctions on Oleg Derishkina lifted. The U.S. imposed sanctions on the Russian billionaire in 2016. That was for acting on behalf of a senior official in the Russian government and for operating in the Russian energy sector. Trump responded to news of the indictment on Truth Social. He said, "The FBI guy after me for the Russia hoax was just arrested for taking money from Russia." 50-foot boat Saturday afternoon. They were detained close to the Quezal Island located between Florida and Cuba. Officials said the Haitians will be processed in the Bahamas and later repatriated. The county has bypassed President Biden and is asking for help from the state of Texas and its neighbors like Oklahoma, Arkansas, and others. We hear analysis from a former law enforcement officer on how to stop violent individuals from entering the country and a record migrant surge. Joining me now is Victor Avila, retired special agent with Homeland Security Investigations. It's great to have you with us, Victor.
Thanks for having me back, Kevin.
People on terror watch lists are being encountered at the border at a much higher rate in recent years. According to CBP data, agents stopped 38 terror watch list individuals since October. What do you think is driving this trend, and what can be done to stop it?
And that's one of the major things that I think is overlooked a lot, and this is the national security and public safety issue that we need to look at. As you mentioned, just 38 from this fiscal year of October to the present, but over 150 over the past 2 years alone. And these are individuals, basically terrorists. They're on the no-fly list, on the terror watch list that we have identified as potential terrorist threats to the United States. These are people that, under the Department of Homeland Security, we call them special interest aliens, or SIAs, and come from countries that are sponsored, terrorism-sponsored countries like Somalia, Bangladesh, and others, Iraq, Afghanistan, that are coming in through Mexico. Why? Because they know, like all the other millions of people that have come through there, that the border is unsecure, and they're able to infiltrate themselves in some of these groups and enter this country either undetected and set up shop here in the United States.
And what is the risk to national security that this poses? And are there MS-13 gang members coming through at an alarming rate as well?
Absolutely. There's a tremendous amount of gang members, people with criminal histories. There's an MS-13 gang member that came in as an unaccompanied minor at the age of 17 that is now accused in Maryland of strangling a 20-year-old woman, autistic woman, strangling her to death. These are the real stories that continue to happen in the United States, where people from other countries and other parts of the world come to the United States and commit crimes. Now, I understand it's not everyone that does that, but we have too many that are. Another number I'll throw at you is 38 sex offenders just in this month alone. In the month of January of 2023, have been detected in the southern Rio Grande Valley sector of Border Patrol in Texas. 38 sex offenders trying to come back into the country.
Public safety is always a very important issue. Some numbers here: 2.1 million gotaways. Agents confirmed that under the migrants under the Biden administration. CBP saw about 700,000 border encounters in the first 100 days of the fiscal year. The administration has attributed this to an annual surge. What's your reaction?
Well, I'll tell you that the surge is due to this administration and the invitation that are given to the rest of the world, really telling them that they're not going to abide by our own United States immigration law. They're not going to abide by our own asylum criteria, and they're just going to allow people in. There is no true vetting of these individuals. That's why we're talking about these crimes. And when you don't have the ability and the time to process these individuals correctly, when you hear the term process by Border Patrol, they're streamlining these individuals as quickly as they can and you have unaccompanied minors, children placed with sponsors that they shouldn't be placed. You have people going to locations that they shouldn't be going. And you have individuals that are not vetted properly, infiltrating our country and becoming your neighbor. And this is where the public safety issue lies. And so it's a simple thing to solve this, is to go back and start enforcing our own immigration and border security laws. We don't need new laws. We just need our border agents to start enforcing the laws. But attached to that is to continue to prosecute those individuals that come into this country illegally with the help of the Department of Justice as well.
Formula shortage that sent panicked parents on a hunt for formula at food banks, doctors' offices, and some even crossing state lines for supplies. Experts say the agency likely has serious concerns.
They probably have information either from that site visit or from human sources that are telling them that there was a significant problem.
A spokesperson for Abbott says the company is fully cooperating with the DOJ. Abbott's Michigan plant shut down after the FDA began investigating bacterial infections among infants who consumed baby formula made at the factory. Inspectors reportedly uncovered several violations at the plant, including bacterial contamination, a leaky roof, and lax safety protocols. Abbott, however, maintains its products have not been directly linked to infant infections. And while production may have restarted, some parents say they're still dealing with shortages.
I thought it would be a little better by now, but I feel like it's almost just as bad as like in March of 2022. I mean, the shelves are never full.
Abbott is also facing a lawsuit from a shareholder that accuses the company of concealing information about safety issues, which later impact the company's stock price. Abbott insists it acted responsibly and has called the lawsuit meritless. In New York, Lydia Hu, Fox Business.
Laws effective immediately. Apparently, the latest versions of these spokes candies had become too controversial and therefore divisive, so they've been shelved. At least for now. In the meantime, Meyer Rudolph picks up My Childhood Dream.
The search turned up 6 more classified items, this time from his years in the Senate, which he left more than a decade ago. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are pushing for more from the Justice Department on its investigation, growing frustrated with the slow drip of information.
We do not have different rules for Democrats or Republicans, different rules for the powerful or the powerless, different rules for the rich or for the poor.
The document issue is becoming a growing problem for the Biden administration. 64% of Americans say the president acted inappropriately, according to the new poll numbers.
4 members of the far-right militia group Oath Keepers were found guilty by a Washington, D.C. jury of charges related to the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. A federal judge ordered Roberto Minuta, Joseph Hackett, David Marshall, and Edward Vallejo to stay on house arrest until they are sentenced. The 4 men cannot have firearms in their house and will also have limits on phone and internet use. It's rare for the DOJ to seek seditious conspiracy charges.
Following the Trump investigation for more than a year and has the latest.
Last year, courthouse security was often tight as dozens and dozens of witnesses testified before the special purpose grand jury investigating former President Donald Trump and his allies. Extra tight for former Trump National Security Advisor Michael Flynn.
Sorry, sir.
Not so much when Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger and his top election aide Gabe Sterling casually walked down the street to testify. And now, after 8 months of weekly, painstaking criminal investigation, the grand jury has finished its work, and grand jurors voted to recommend that its report be published. But will that happen? Earlier in January, Judge Robert McBurney said, grand jurors, your job is done. You can go home. But he then told the key players in this case to come back to court and discuss whether the grand jury report can legally be made public. What are we to expect from this hearing?
We can expect it to be interesting.
Georgia State University law professor Clark Cunningham says it's a complex legal question, and he's not sure who will show up to argue it. He also wonders, what does Fulton County District Attorney Fonnie Willis want?
You certainly can imagine reasons why the district attorney might not want some or all of it. published, or at least published right away. It alerts witnesses. It may interfere with the way she prosecutes and so on.
Another question? Can the special grand jury, which has no power to indict anyone, recommend someone should be indicted by another grand jury? Then Chief Judge Christopher Brasher's order establishing the grand jury says that the grand jurors may make recommendations concerning criminal prosecution as it shall see fit.
It is absolutely prohibited from this grand jury of accusing anyone of a crime.
Not so fast, says former DeKalb District Attorney J. Tom Morgan. He says Georgia case law says special grand juries aren't allowed by law to recommend indictment.
So Judge McBurney, who was the Superior Court judge in this case, he has to walk a very fine line. And I would not be surprised that if there is a formal report, that a large portion of that report will be redacted, because according to Georgia law, they cannot accuse anyone of a crime.
Now, what's really mysterious is, are we going to hear from any of the potential targets?
Cunningham says people who are named in the report, perhaps Donald Trump or his campaign attorney, Rudy Giuliani, and others, may want to come to court and argue their names should be kept from the public.
If those people show up with lawyers, it's going to be a kind of an epic day in Fulton County.
Based on the
voluntarily, had it not been for the issues that Trump is facing. That in itself underlines that these documents were most likely taken by Biden with very specific goals in mind. The location where these documents were found also throws up a number of very disturbing questions. The office where Biden kept the top secret materials belongs to the University of Pennsylvania. The university had set up the Penn Biden Center for Diplomacy and Global Engagement for Biden after his vice presidency. The center's offices were located at 101 Constitution Avenue in Washington, D.C. That's right next to the Capitol. It is not clear what the purpose of the center was, other than to provide Biden with a cushy gig and a nice office. The most recent update on the center's website is from April of last year. The one before that, which is the only entry for all of 2021, is from March of 2021. And the one before that is from a year earlier, April 2020. The most recent tweet from the center is from April of last year. You get the idea. There wasn't much activity, but there are many questions. The University of Pennsylvania is known for its deep ties to China and to the Chinese Communist Party. The university is particularly close to Shanghai Jiao Tong University, from which former Chinese leader Jiang Zemin graduated. The Shanghai Jiao Tong University is known to host Chinese Communist Party events, including the 11th Shanghai Jiao Tong Congress of the Communist Party, which was held in 2020, and a History of the Communist Party of China event last year. But it gets worse. The University of Pennsylvania not only has deep ties to China, it is also a recipient of huge amounts of shady donations from China. $54 million to be exact, most of which was given after the Biden Center was announced in February of 2017. In 2018, shortly after the center opened, there was a one-off massive $14.5 million donation from an allegedly anonymous source in China. What's also notable is that Biden's Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, previously worked as the managing director of the center, which, as we have seen, does not seem to have much activity. So let's recap. We have a shady center set up as some form of landing pad for Biden and for his associates like Blinken that was paid for by a university with strong ties to China, which also happened to receive huge amounts of money from China. And that's where Joe Biden kept these secret documents, which he was not allowed to have once he left the vice presidency. And, mind you, unlike Trump, Biden, as vice president, had no authority to declassify anything. So that excuse won't work. So what were these documents about, and why did Biden hide them in his office at the University of Pennsylvania Center in Washington, D.C.? We have a number of clues. The secret documents are said to have been about Ukraine, Iran, and the United Kingdom, including documents from 2016, which was Biden's last year as vice president. Let's start with Ukraine. A little-known fact, which should really be receiving a lot more attention than it has, is that in his final days as vice president, Biden flew to Ukraine. It has never been fully understood what that trip was about. Normally, a presidential administration would not be conducting foreign affairs just days before a new administration arrives. Even Ukrainian officials and media were flabbergasted as to what Biden was there for. As recently released State Department emails show, the department too was wondering what was going on. The State Department cited a number of possible explanations that the Ukrainians themselves were putting forward. One Ukrainian commentator speculated that Mr. Vice President has a business interest here, and the former Vice President even more. Here in the shale gas Burisma company, his son had been working at a time. Perhaps the behind-the-scenes part of the visit can be attributed to the fact that the Ukrainian authorities guaranteed some business positions to the former vice president and his family. That was prescient because it just so happens that the criminal cases against Hunter's firm Burisma were dropped at the time of Biden's last-minute visit to Ukraine. Just as conspicuously, at around the same time, Burisma made a large donation to the far-left Atlantic Council, a Democrat Party favorite. So the Biden family's Burisma entanglements appear to have been one of the reasons for the last-minute visit, and it is possible that some of the documents which Biden secretly kept had something to do with that.